2, 1. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Wallace Way Show. We are honored and blessed to have such a distinguished lady, an all around smart, intellectually stunning person, and we are going to get to know her. So I want to introduce you to Nuchhi Currier. How are we doing today, madam?
Very well, and you said that absolutely correctly. Thank you.
Like we were speaking earlier, with a name like Dawood, sometimes it's a tricky name, and it's been like that since.
A lot of people will go, Nuki, is that Nuki? No, it isn't. It's Nuchi.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Let me let the people know a little bit about you. So Ms. Currier was elected president of the Women's National Democratic Club in July 2016, where she previously served as president previous 4 years from 2009 to 2013. She's brought the institution back to solvency from near bankruptcy, and in her previous tenure is actively engaged in refocusing in the areas of public policy and politics. Under her leadership, the club became Hillary Clinton's DC campaign headquarters and then post-election, the hub of the March on Washington. She's been actively engaged in the private sector in strategic planning, pricing, and marketing in senior management positions in South Asia, the Persian Gulf, and North America. And that's a bio for you. So tell me how you got started with the organization.
So I am a New Yorker. I was in New York for 20 years, and that's when I was in the commercial world, right?
Okay.
And while I was in New York, I quit working and I went back to school. I went to Columbia and got a master's in international affairs. And within that, I did international finance and business. And after that, I actually I wrote for the UN Chronicle for about 2 years. And then my husband, who's a lawyer, got an opportunity here in Washington that we couldn't miss. So we moved here.
Okay.
And that was, I think, 2005, maybe. And I accidentally ran into the Women's National Democratic Club. I was going there to meet with somebody totally unconnected to the club because they used to rent the space out to an organization.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a beautiful place. And I was curious about it. I asked about it and I was told you should join it. And so I took all the material. And then a few months later, I joined. And before I knew it, I was on their board. And then I ran their program committee. We do speaker programs twice a week.
Okay.
And so I was arranging those for a couple of years, I think. And then they ran into this major crisis where they were going to sell this house, the Whittemore house, which we've owned for over 90 years. They were going to sell it. And because they thought this was the end of the road. So when I talk about near bankruptcy, that was how the then president felt, how cornered she felt. And anyway, I was against that. A few of the members, actually a bulk of the members, opposed that move. That president resigned, and I was told, will you take over? So it's just very random. But because I've run businesses before, because I am not just a public servant, I have been in the commercial world. It was maybe easier for me because it's a nonprofit, but it's a nonprofit business. You have to survive, right? And so for that, you actually have to have a strategy of survival. And we've only gone from strength to strength.
No, that's awesome, and it's your back was to the wall, and it was under a lot of pressure and stress. You managed to maneuver out of that, which shows that you are a fluid thinker and quick on your feet and like strategic. Do you play chess?
I play bridge, which is the equivalent of chess, and I've played tournament bridge my entire life. But I think it's also everything in my life that I had done till now I came to my aid in trying to figure out next steps here because experience is important.
No doubt, no doubt. That is pretty good. So, got your master's from Columbia, really good school. My wife went to Cornell, so she might not agree, but she gets it. And then you worked for UNICEF. Tell me about that time period in your life.
So I did a project for them.
Okay.
And it's like I was much longer at the United Nations Information Services, where I was writing for the UN Chronicle for 2 years. For UNICEF, I did one small project.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
because they farm out projects.
So the UN Chronicles, like, you know, in America, we of course we know about the UN, but I don't know if we really know about it. You know what I mean? Like, we know from a very topical level. What is the UN's role moving forward in 2020 and moving forward from here?
I think it can be a very important role. It depends on, because it's made up of member nations. So every nation in the world is a member of this organization. And when you have an unwieldy body like that, to manage it and for it to succeed, for members to vest in it is crucial, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so any time where you need to enact policies which are global, so for instance, global warming, for instance, disarmament, for instance, nuclear proliferation or threats of health. So they have these goals which are called millennial development goals. It's a development body. So they are structured to help countries which are not able to help themselves adequately with the help of richer, better endowed countries.
Mm-hmm.
So to basically level the playing field, because all things are not equal, unfortunately.
That's a great point. You know, I did Model UN in college, and some of the numbers in the research just were mind blowing. I was on the um, food shortage
Right,
topic,
right.
and some of the numbers I just couldn't fathom it. You know, like the way we buy groceries here, and then like that's some people's food budget for a whole month, and
Is not even $1.
it was mind blowing. And
Yeah,
to this
yeah.
point now, where like I'm almost just so careful and cognizant of thinking about just spending like.
I come from Pakistan, and so I come from a country which is a developing country, and so I know those problems really well, because the discrepancy between the very rich and the very poor is massive.
Mm,
It used to be all India, and now it's India and Pakistan, but people are more cognizant of India than they are of Pakistan, right? But it was the same land for millennia, for centuries, and then in 1947 it became two countries. But the problems are identical, the culture is the same, the language is virtually the same, etc., etc. So you have disparities in health, you have disparities in access to food, you have just you have a lot of disease, you have a very, very, very bright population in most of these countries, but they don't have the kind of opportunities that you may need. But I'm going to actually make a bit of a radical statement. I think that when we think that anything is accessible to us, we become complacent, we become lazy, and we don't strive as hard as a lot of those people who have to strive against the odds, right?
yeah,
And you see a lot more initiative and you see a lot more achievement in those situations where people feel they have to fight for everything that they get. In some ways, that kind of a mindset is conducive to a lot of very good things happening within society also. Complacency is not good.
1,000%. And you know, I see that sometimes, even like if you look at sports in a sense.
Right.
You know, I'm a huge sports fan, and you see the grinders, you know, the people that just keep grinding out. They may not be the most talented per se, or can jump the highest or run the fastest, but they grind out, they keep grinding, and eventually they get to a certain level of success because they just kept at it, you know, tenacity, grit. That's a, you know,
Absolutely. There's a lot to be said for that. Yes.
totally agree. So kind of moving forward, you know, 2020 very interesting year. I was talking to my dad a little earlier, and he graduated high school in 1968, and which was another pivotal year in America.
Yep.
Vietnam War,
Was happening. Yeah.
and music, and everything was just kind of a melting pot. And now you're looking at 2020, like this is that type of year. The election. Let's kind of touch on that a little bit. What was your thoughts on that leading up to it, and kind of the post-election? I guess we're now in the post-election cycle.
Right. So we were very hopeful because this seemed to be our election to lose if we were going to lose it. And we actually were so confident that we would also get the Senate because so much destruction has been wrought by this president and his henchmen, I should say, that it seemed like a given that people would not countenance another 4 years of this. And if you have a disruptive Senate who's not going to allow anything to move, which is what they did with Obama, right? If that is what they are going to do with Biden, then there is just so much Biden is going to be able to do. And so our thrust was actually to win the Senate as much as possible and to keep the House.
Okay.
So the result of the election has been just a little bit disappointing because we lost a little bit of ground in the House races. We're still ahead, but we lost some seats there. And in the Senate now, we're dependent on this runoff. We thought we would have a clear victory, and we did not. So there was a miscalculation that happened there. And also what's interesting is that the same areas where people voted in the majority for Biden, they voted maybe for Republicans down ballot, which is unusual, right? And because normally people go, if they're voting Democrat, it's Democrats all the way. If it's Republican, Republicans on the way. They split the ticket.
Yeah, it's like I said, I'm not really massively into politics per se.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, I mean, you can't in 2020 and moving forward, you just can't get away from it. Like it's literally everywhere.
Actually, it's our rights, right? It's our rights at stake, and voting is and participation, political participation is our right. And if we abdicate that right, then we deserve whatever we get, because then somebody else is going to be imposing their will on us. So that's the way to look at politics. Politics is a very interesting game as well. I ran for politics myself here.
Oh, we're going to get into that.
Yeah. But and I was not into politics at all until I moved to DC. In New York, I was doing something completely different. And so you can come late to this game also. But I think what we really need to understand is if we're not into politics and we are going to cede that field to somebody else, then the judges that we're getting who are messing with our freedoms, and the leaders that we're getting who are doing a lot of destruction in terms of policies, we gave that power to them. And so you must not cede that power.
Fair enough. Yeah, like, this whole this is a very, like you said, interesting time in 2020 and moving forward. So, I wanted to kind of ask you, what are 3 issues or 3 topics that you would want the next administration to kind of, put their thumb on and try to address to the best of their capability? Like you said, we understand if you don't have both houses, some of the stuff just won't happen. Like it's just all talk, and none of it's going to get done. But what are 3 things that you want the next administration to kind of work on and kind of,
Yeah, so sure. I'll tell you, meaning there are so many issues, but I'll pick 3. But before I do that, I want to say it's not just that things will not get done. They have said actively, Mitch McConnell has said he will make sure nothing passes, which is what he did also in the Obama administration. We are going to we're going to make sure that he can do nothing as if we can help it. And Obama still did a fair amount. And hopefully, if we win the Senate, President-elect Biden will be able to do a lot too. Now, what are my priorities? I think civil rights,
Okay.
finally, the day has come, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that there has been a buildup. There are the deniers who feel that it's all hyped up, because when you talk about police brutality, when you talk about defunding the police, now they twist it so they get white people who are feeling threatened by all the black and brown people of the world, because they are now seeing more and more and more of them, and it's stemming from that fear of losing control and power, right? And how do they exert that control and power? It is through the police and through their system of incarcerations, and it's their the way that they deny certain people the right to live in certain zip codes, deny them housing, they deny them schooling. NPR did a really interesting segment on how, if, let's say, you and I and a white person, three people, apply to the same building to rent an apartment,
Mm-hmm.
a black person will be charged the most and the white person will be charged the least, and I, because I'm brown, will probably somehow be accommodated in the middle. This is how segmented and how unfair and how ridiculous things have been here in our nation. And so, to me, civil rights and righting this wrong, it's going to take time, but that has to be a priority. We cannot keep pushing it under the rug.
No doubt. No, it's that's a lot to unpack. That's a whole nother show we got to do.
Right?
But you're 100% right.
Yeah, so that's one. Then number two, healthcare. How can any developed country deny healthcare to all its citizens? We are the only one who do that. Every other developed country provides that. It's a given. In Europe, you even have free education all the way up to college for every citizen of their country. What do we do? There's all this segmentation, there's all this deprivation, which actually makes no sense. So healthcare, education, those issues I would lump together as two issues. And then this our legal system, I think the way it is under attack, to me, when we were working on Obama's campaign,
Okay.
for his re-election, I used to say to anybody who would listen, the reason you need to vote for Democrats and you need to vote for Obama is because whoever is in the White House is going to appoint judges to the Supreme Court. So if you want the kind of justice that you're looking for, you just have to think of that. Think of the Supreme Court. And it's actually not just the Supreme Court that has lifetime appointments, it's down the line. And so there are appointed judges for life all across this nation, which Mitch McConnell has been stacking throughout this 4-year period. And now for us to undo that damage I don't know how many decades it's going to take us.
It's it's those are three great points. Yeah, like, and it just speaking to you, right? It, as a person not really heavy dosed into politics, will we get to a point when it's like we all just connect as one? And I'm not saying everything's going to be perfect. There is no perfect scenario in none of this,
because
right?
none of us is perfect,
None
right?
of us is perfect. Yeah. I'm close, but not quite, right? But is there a point? Do you see a point that you see more unity and more just you don't have to agree with everyone, but like the
You
respect
can agree,
factor,
you can agree to disagree.
right? Or just like, yo, that person
Be
believes
able
this,
to
that
talk
person
to
believes
each
that.
other. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that that is vitally important, and I actually practice that in life. So I am a Democrat, and I'm running this organization who espouses democratic principles, right? Big D principles. But I am also on the board of another organization which has more Republicans and non-Democrats than Democrats, and their board, I think maybe there are three Democrats, and I'm one of them, and there are like 22 or 24 people on that board,
Mhm.
and they're very interesting, very engaging, very bright and educated, erudite folks. They have a different viewpoint. We have discussions. There
Mhm.
are some things that we completely agree on. There are some things that we partially agree on. There are some things that we don't agree on. But we're capable of having a dialogue. I think we have to take that model across this nation. We have to learn to talk to each other. The minute I say I'm right and you're wrong,
Yes.
that's the end of the nation, really, because there is no such thing,
I 1000% agree. And
right?
I don't know if social media has magnified that. It,
It has.
you know, I just, it's to the point now, and you just, the arguing, the bantering, it just gets corny after a while. And I think some people just get turned off by it. And I just think they're like, whatever. Like, I'm not going to force my energy into this negativity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because we're all living in echo chambers. So when your TV network stations, your cable stations, your radio stations, most of your media is so segmented.
Mm,
So people of one persuasion will only tune into one kind of programming, and vice versa. And so there is no cross pollination that's happening, and that is the media, and that is social media.
agree. And media plays a huge role in this. And I remember my grandmother, she would literally watch Blue Bloods, Church, and MSNBC all day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Nana, like you gotta like, there's some
Yeah.
other channels out there. Let's try to look at some other stuff. But it's a very one of my previous guests on here, he goes by the Twitter feed Life, Math, and Money. Great guy. You got to give him a follow.
Hmm.
We talked about tribalism,
Yeah.
and and right now that seems to be so glorified, the tribalism, and it's been here forever since
But
caveman time, right?
it's not just here. This is a global phenomenon. This is happening in much of Europe. This is happening in India. This is happening in Australia. This is happening in Brazil.
Mm,
This has become a global phenomena. And I think, again, the media plays a huge role. And social media certainly plays a big role. But authoritarianism, tribalism, nationalism. I actually think nationalism is not any ism is not a good thing, because you have to be able to look at a bigger picture than just what you have been indoctrinated with.
yeah, and just growing up, you kind of think about like your parents tell you to go to church, and it's like, all right, boom, boom, boom. When you get older, you start to see, oh, there's different religions, oh, there's different forms of
Yeah.
spirituality. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know this because my mom said, oh, you're going to church this Sunday. I don't care what's happening, right? So no, that's a very interesting thing. Those are three very important things.
So I have to quickly say this, now that we're on religion. I remember saying to my mom, who's 93 years old and
Okay.
still living, and I go and visit her at least twice a year. I remember saying to her, the minute you say to me, your religion is better than somebody else's, you've lost me. Because everybody thinks that theirs is the best. Now, you can say, I love my religion, and you can love yours. As long as we are espousing all the good qualities that humans should embrace, right? And most religions actually point to the same things.
1,000% agree.
Right.
And my grandmother was a Baptist minister, so you can imagine in the summertime churches, I was there every day, front pew, right?
Yeah.
And then my parents, I have an Arabic name, and so they started teaching me other aspects of religions, and all is one. And I don't want to get too deep into religion, but
Right.
I
Right.
love everybody, but all is one, and there is no one side is better than the other. That's so whack. I mean, that is such a whack way of
What
thinking, right?
we do that in religion, we do that in politics, we do that self-interest. So there's a book called The Selfish Gene, right?
So
So
okay,
so we carry that concept all the way into every single aspect of life. So the selfish gene is into survival, right? And survival is the first thing. But then there's also been evolution. So if we haven't evolved into slightly higher beings where our survival at the cost of somebody else is not the only motivation, then we should actually be able to embrace other people and other dogma. But we don't.
I agree. I agree. So real quickly, I know you're busy and I want to get you out of here. A couple things. Tell me about your run in politics. How'd you got started with that, and what was your take on politics, and would you do it again?
So why did I do it? Because once I joined the WNDC, and when I get into something, I really jump in feet first.
Mm-hmm.
I was so embroiled in it. I was so engaged with it, especially as the president, because we do a lot of political work. We get leaders to come and speak to us. So meaning we personally get to know congressmen, congresswomen, senators. Everybody comes to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a bug. I got the bug. I got the politics bug. And so I was living in DC for 10 years. I moved to Maryland, and I'd lived in Maryland for 2 years before I'd moved to DC. And in DC, you don't have representation. I couldn't have run for office, right? Unless I was running for the city council or the mayor's office, there's nowhere to run, nothing to run for. And so I realized that in the state legislature, there were in the district that I lived in,
Mm-hmm.
there were 3 seats, and there were 2 incumbents.
Okay.
So there was one so-called open seat. Although it's an election, every seat is an open seat until people get re-elected. And I used to go around saying, there's no divine right of incumbency, but there is actually.
You're right. No, yeah.
Right. And so people had said to me for a long time, you should run. And I enjoyed doing whatever I was doing. So I said, well, let me explore this. And before I knew it, I was deep into it. I ran for state office for the legislature for a delegate position in Annapolis.
Right.
And there were 2 incumbents and 1 so-called open seat, and there were 8 of us running.
Okay. Okay.
Right? And I jumped in really late. And there were 2 very serious contenders who had been campaigning for like a year and a half. I did it for like 3 months, maybe max, right? And so my contention is that anybody I met, I converted. I just couldn't meet everybody. And so, because it's a vast district.
Sure.
And, but to me, it was one of the most exhilarating things I've done. I enjoyed every second of it. I'm a people's person. I enjoy interacting with people. I'm very passionate about policy. And I took a departure from the regular Democratic line. It's a very blue state, right? So meaning whoever won on the Democratic ticket was going to be the ultimate winner, because no Republican had a chance in our district.
Right.
And because I am into business and commerce, I started exploring why small businesses were not doing so well in Montgomery County.
Mm-hmm.
Why was Virginia eating our cake. And so, so I actually picked up on that theme. Everybody was talking about education and health and other issues. I was the only senior citizen, by the way, who was running. All the others were young kids. And so I picked up two issues. One was, I'm a senior citizen. I'm there to take care of all your needs because I understand what those needs are, right? But more than that, our kids, we give them the best education and then they leave and go to other jurisdictions. Why? We have to examine that and we have to change things. It was very exciting.
No, that sounds awesome. And actually, I just moved to Montgomery County. So,
Oh, you did?
yeah, up in the Clarksburg area.
Okay.
So, but no, it's a different place. I'm originally from Howard County, so this is
yeah, very different. Yeah,
it's a very different place.
For 10 years, I lived in Logan Circle.
Okay.
So I was like in the heart of the city, and then I come here to this bucolic place in Montgomery County, right? Yeah.
But but that's so interesting how you said you caught the bug, and I see you glowing from that. Like it seems to be a rush. Like, is it a rush? Like it
is a rush. It is a rush. I think I lived on some cloud for those few months that I was doing this. And I also knew that the odds were against me.
Right.
But it didn't matter. I was doing what I felt was the right thing to do. Number one, for a minority woman to run, I think is a very big deal. And I think more people should do that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And women were the story. From 2016 onwards, women have been the story throughout our nation. Women have won, they have run, they have won. They are now almost as big political contributors as men, which was not the case before. So, and women are changing the course of elections in the course of our nation.
Oh, I mean, women are...
Right. And so they've become very, very active. My organization, the Women's National Democratic Club, was created 2 years after women won the right to vote in 1922. Until 1920, all the power women had was derived power, derived from their husbands or their fathers or their brothers. They didn't have any power of their own. And so once they won the right to vote, our motto will tell you exactly what our mission is: from the right to vote, the power to lead. So we want women in leadership positions. And so what better way of showing that is but by running for office, right?
I agree. No, that was awesome. I read that bio part and I was like, wow, that is dope. That was pretty dope. Okay, a couple more things real quick. So just tell us about the club real quick as far as events. I know with 2020 everything's kind of shut down, but you know, back when everything opened back up, so you guys have events, exhibits. Just give us real quick about that.
Yeah, so we're an art gallery, which means that we have a rotating art exhibition every 3 months. So we have 4 rotating art exhibitions, and we try and showcase the work of an individual artist to give them an opportunity. And a lot of them happen to be women. We are women, right? We embrace people. So we have male members too. I'm inviting you to become a member as well. You can. But, yeah. So and then we're a museum. So how are we a museum? It's number one, we're in a historic building. Number two, all the furnishings date back to our founding mothers. And number three, our archives are valuable because we were created by suffragists, and our archives are sitting in the Library of Congress. And for future historians. And we have our centennial coming up now in 2022, 100 years of existence. And so we want historians to get interested and to write about 100 years of what we have achieved. So we have all of that. Then we have a very active public policy committee, and so we work hugely on policy. Then we have our program committee, and we put on these programs normally twice a week in-house at our beautiful clubhouse. And we invite writers, we invite thinkers, we invite leaders, whether they're foreign or national. We basically try to inspire discussion, debate on important issues. Then we do a lot of lighter things as well. We will do wine tastings and we will do performances. I've actually acted in a couple of plays that were staged at the clubhouse. So we're into the arts, we're into the sciences, we're into politics, we're into a whole gamut of stuff, and all of that gets arranged through our program committee.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I mean, I cannot wait to everything clears up. And
Yeah, I would love for you to come because we have an awesome kitchen. We run a kitchen, and these days we are doing our Food for DC Kids program. Because I didn't want to fire anybody, right? Because if you furlough somebody, ultimately they lose their health insurance. And during a pandemic, that's not what you want to do. So to keep them employed, engaged, and busy, we started this Food for DC Kids program where we feed 100 kids every day in the Columbia Heights area, where there's actually a lot of need these days. There's a lot of need everywhere in the nation these days, right? There's a huge amount of food insecurity. And so I keep my employees engaged. It encourages people to donate to us because this whole program is run on donations. And these are tax deductible donations. So there's also an advantage to the donor. And we're doing a huge public service. So
no, it sounds so groovy. I cannot wait to get there. I'm just honored and blessed that as such a powerful person like yourself, and it's just a down to earth person. Some people get to a certain level and they get kind of, they're not cool to talk to, but you are awesome to talk to.
Thank you. You're very kind. I have to say, you've been the best host.
I just, it comes from a place of realness, and you can feel people's energy, even though we're not together per se. You can see your energy, you can see your glow, you can see your love for people and for fresh ideas, and to me, that's always dope. So I'm definitely with it. But Madam Currier, it has been a pleasure speaking with you today. I cannot wait to get up and come to the club and show me around and definitely
and maybe join us, and maybe your viewers join us too, because even during COVID times when people are losing members, every month we gain 8 to 10 members. Even during this period when we're shut down, because of what we do. Right, because politically we're very engaged. So we're working in Georgia for the runoff races.
Yeah, I missed they had a debate last night, right?
Yes, they did. I saw that. Yeah.
How was it? I missed it.
I don't even want to comment on it because this was like a female Trump spouting lies. What can I tell you?
Yeah, I heard it. So what happens if the Democrats win the seat, then they get the Senate? Like, how does it work?
If they win both seats, then the Senate becomes 50-50. And then Kamala Harris becomes tiebreaker, which means that the Democrats will be able to pass some legislation without a fight each time.
So this is a big stake.
It's a huge election. It's the most important election now.
All in Georgia, right?
Yep.
Well, I will stay tuned and I will lean on you for some tidbits and stuff I should be looking for during this race. But thank you so much and have a beautiful holiday. We'll definitely be chatting in the future. And I'm
looking forward to inviting you and welcoming you to the Women's National Democratic Club. So our website is just Google WNDC or Women's National Democratic Club.
Yep, and I'll put it in the show notes as well.
Lovely. We're an awesome organization.
No doubt. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, madam.
Thank you for having me on.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.